All right, welcome back, everybody. And anybody that's new here, thanks for joining me today. Today's going to be another ice fishing story. Obviously, if you guys seen the title and description, it has to do with Lake Winnebago. And if you don't know what Lake Winnebago is, if you're not from the area, if you're not from Wisconsin, it's the biggest lake in the state of Wisconsin. I believe it's like 20 something miles long, and it's like 10 miles across or something like that. It's crazy big. And that's basically how this all transpired. I'm going to try and give you guys some graphics to describe, like, so you guys can visualize and see what I'm talking about with what happened. And this still kind of goes along the lines of, like, what would you call that? It's not necessarily ice safety, but basically being aware of your surroundings, taking your time, checking things, going slow, just being mindful of you're out on the ice and you got to be careful type thing. Hopefully this helps some of you guys out, but like I was saying before, if you're not from Wisconsin, you don't know what lake I'm talking about, you can look up, I have videos of it, so you guys can see some of those videos if you just look through my ice fishing playlist. I have a bunch of those. I think I even have a Lake Winnebago playlist because I love going out there so much. It's a massive body of water, so it's one of those things where, like, I can talk about fishing out there all I want and it's not going to affect the body of water at all because there's millions of people that fish it every year. But if you guys want to look it up, just look up Lake Winnebago and then the state of Wisconsin. So if you're in a different country or something like that, that's the easiest way to look it up. But you should be able to find videos on my playlist or anybody else's that has videos from there, which there's millions. So we're going to get into this story, and comment below if you guys have ever had anything like this happen before. I'm kind of curious to know if I'm alone here or if this is like a common occurrence, because it only happened the one time and it's like burned into my brain not to do this again. So without further ado, let's get into it. Okay, so we're going to just start with like an overview here real quick, just so you guys kind of get an understanding. This, I believe, was my first or second time on Lake Winnebago. Actually, I think it is my second time, but it's my first time with a machine, because a buddy of mine had two machines. He had a small four-wheeler and a big, he just got himself a nice big new four-wheeler, and he wanted to go fish out there, and I wanted to go fish out there. And he was like, well, you kind of know it, you know the people around the area, you might be able to figure it out, blah, blah, blah. Long story short, it was like, well, I have a machine to get out there now, and it's a big lake, so sure, I'll go out and try and fish it with you. It was worth trying. I like exploring new bodies of water. This is kind of like, you know, under those premises of like, get out and explore new bodies of water, but do it with smarts and all that stuff. But as I was saying, the lake itself is 10 miles wide, and then it's 28 miles from top to bottom. So I'll just put some graphics here. So like I was saying, it's 10 miles wide, so you guys can see that. And then it's 28 miles from, like, I think Fond du Lac up to, I'm not even sure what the city is at the very top of it. But like you guys can see the length of it. It's long. So this is a massive body of water. Okay, so one thing that I want you guys to understand is this was like, I think we started late because we didn't know how long it was going to take to get to where we were accessing the ice. So we started at like 7 p.m. This is the starting point. It was Merritt Avenue. If you guys fish Lake Winnebago, you know Merritt Avenue. And basically straight off of Merritt Avenue. So we unload everything. We get set up. We got, you know, I got a shack behind my four-wheeler. He's got a shack behind his four-wheeler. And we're just going to go straight out to, like, the main brake line. But within, like, I think it was like a quarter mile, maybe 200 yards. It wasn't very far. Was this huge crack that ran north-south. And if you guys have ever fished Lake Winnebago, it develops these giant cracks in the ice. And they put bridges and stuff over them a lot of times, but this one didn't have any bridges right away. So we had to run north. Here, I'll just put the big graphic up for you guys. So we started at about 7 a.m. and ran north of the big crack. Mind you, one detail I left out was it was super foggy. And I mean super foggy. You couldn't see more than like 100 yards out in front of you. So we just followed a road. There's roads out on Lake Winnebago. If you've never ice fished before, there's roads that they plow through the snow and stuff like that, and they mark them and with trees in the ice so you can see where you're going, so you don't get lost out there. But we followed a road north, as you see on the arrow pointing north. We followed that up and we went north, and there was a spot where you could cross the crack where it was together and like it didn't matter. You were able to cross it. But we couldn't see what we were doing. So basically we just kind of stumbled across the crack, and or at the time we didn't even realize we had crossed that crack because it was so foggy. And I kept checking my GPS on my phone, but it kept redirecting me because I had put a pin somewhere out by like one of the brake lines to go fishing. And like by 8 o'clock, my buddy kept telling me, he's like, I feel like we're driving in circles out here. Where's that crack at? And I was like, I don't know. I'm pretty sure we drove over it somewhere, but I didn't see any bridges, and I don't know where we're going. Like, it says we're headed in the direction of the thing, but every time we stop, my GPS spins. And he goes, oh God, he goes, hopefully we're not like on the other side of the lake, which is 5 miles across. And we were cruising around at about 35 miles an hour, which was stupid because it was so dark, or like your view was so obscured. You couldn't tell where you were at. So right around like 8 p.m. or 8 a.m., so it's already been an hour of driving around. I'm like, we should be at our spot by now. And then my GPS locks and spins again. But then it locks, and it, and I'm like playing with it, and it looks like it's pointed in the right direction. So we're like, all right, we got to make up some time. Let's do like 40 miles an hour. We'll just fly over to this spot. So we're flying along. And I'm like, man, this spot is a lot further. I'm like, I know the lake's big, but I don't know. Like, I don't think the spot is that far away. And then it's like, I didn't know it was around 9 o'clock. But, so it's like right around 9 o'clock apparently. And the fog starts lifting. And as you can see on the map where it says 9 a.m., the fog starts lifting. And I see that point where it says end. And I know what that point is because I was told to watch out for that point. Very specifically because people drive into that river all the time. So like as you're driving that way, if you were to drive your four-wheeler or snowmobile, truck, whatever you're driving on the ice up into the river, that ice is very thin, very dangerous. A lot of people put their vehicles stuff through there every year. And it hit me like a ton of bricks. And like we just lock up our four-wheelers as we were like, I think we were only about 100, 200 yards off of that shore, right where it says river danger. And we turn right because we're like, okay, so we have to go back right because we were trying to go north. Okay, so the whole thing was we were trying to go north to these little underwater humps and stuff like that to fish. And we ended up going in a giant circle to the south for 3 hours. 3 hours it took us to get to that end point. So we turn north, and of course that crack actually goes, like I didn't draw like it curved and all that stuff like the crack was, but it curved back towards the river channel. And of course they had a four-wheeler bridge right there, and we went over the four-wheeler bridge not realizing like we were right back where we started until we went over the four-wheeler bridge, drove like another quarter mile north. And then we were right back where everybody was getting on the ice right there. And the sun was coming up, and it burned off the fog. And basically at that point, we saw the crack. You could see the whole thing. We saw where we had crossed the crack on the south side at the bridge. We saw where we followed the road back from the south, or from the boat launch north. And the sun was up, and you could see where the road had followed the side of the crack and then crossed it. And the thing was, is like I said, the crack was together, so we didn't even realize that we had crossed that crack and went out onto the ice like that when we were trying to go north. So like the GPS must have just kept turning me in a big circle. So as we as we figured it out, we ended up driving straight north, and it took us still, because of how big the lake is, it still took us like 25-30 minutes or something like that to get up to where we were going. I didn't even realize it on the GPS that it was like 2 miles up the lake, which is not a short run when you're trying not to die, because there's sturgeon holes and there was chunk ice and there was cracks and other stuff. We jumped a few cracks, and then had to figure out our way back later on in the day. But long story short here, and I'm gonna make this a quick one. This is just to get your guys' heads wrapped around how easy it is to have this happen. We were very sure of ourselves. We didn't feel like we were turning or anything like that. I was barely turning the four-wheeler. Not much was going on as far as like, you know, extreme movement left or right. It was just a really slow, long, drawn-out circle that happened to put us right back at the river mouth. So, like, we could have went up the river had the fog not lifted a little bit and I could see shore. Because, like I said, I was told about that point, and, like, there's, like, a house right on the point or something like that. And I knew that the only point that was where we were at was the river mouth. So, like, I had that in my head, luckily, ahead of time. So, if you're ever new to Lake Winnebago, make sure you have an understanding of where the danger areas are, which there's some underwater humps that never really freeze over because they're so shallow. There's spots between islands that are dangerous. There's a bunch of different areas, so make sure you understand that. And always go with somebody if you're going to go out there. It's a very big, dangerous lake, and, I mean, you could go out, get lost in the middle of the lake, and then, like, you could walk back into shore, but it's a 4 or 5 mile walk if you're walking from the middle to either side. So that's a long walk across some ice. But, like I said, long story short, be aware of your surroundings and go slow. It's that simple. I should have went slow. I learned my lesson. Almost died. I was almost a Lake Winnebago casualty, because, like, the big thing is you go through in a river, you don't come back up by that hole. It pushes you under the ice, and that's it. That's all there is to it. So sorry for the doom and gloom ending there, but just very, very careful about that river mouth on Lake Winnebago. And then there's other lakes that you got to worry about that too. So just keep your personal awareness on heightened levels when you're on a new body of water with dangers like that. Okay, so hopefully that one helps you guys out a little bit, not to go get lost on some new bodies of water. When there's an ice fog, go slow. And probably should have a compass of some kind, because my GPS on my phone was just going nuts for whatever reason. I don't know if I was losing service or whatever was going on, but it was just, you know, it was saying to follow this direction to get to a GPS point that I had put down, and I wasn't going that direction. I was going the completely opposite direction in a giant circle, a 3-hour circle. Anyways, if you made it this far, I just wanted to let anybody that's subscribed know, or even if you guys aren't subscribed, new DWS Outdoors merch is linked in the description below. Help out with the channel this winter, and it's greatly appreciated. And also, if you pick up any merch, please tag me in some post. I want to see who's getting it. Or at least comment below if you guys get some. That would be a really cool thing. And then also, remember, comment below if you guys have had this happen. I'm just kind of curious if I'm alone here and being stupid. It'd be nice to know that I'm not alone with that. But like I said, hopefully you guys enjoyed today's video. Obviously, if you're not new here, you know what's up. But if you are new, can you please just remember to